Hi, everybody. My name is Jessica Brogley. I'm a teacher of educational technology in the School of Education at the University of Wisconsin-Platteville. I'm here today to tell you about the value and importance of using Google Maps, Google Earth, and other Google-related geotools for use in your classroom. Now, I was supposed to give this presentation at the Wisconsin Social Studies Teacher Conference that would start today and go into tomorrow, but as you can imagine, those plans have changed. Despite that, though, I still wanted to share some content with you because these tools are valuable in your classroom, no doubt, and for your students and yourself, but they also might prove valuable in alternative delivery methods as well. So without further ado, I'm going to jump right into Google Maps and try to give you an abbreviated version for your consideration. So the first thing you should know is that I'm doing all of this from my MacBook, but the directions would be the same if you're using a Chromebook. Now, if you're using an iPad or a tablet, directions are a little bit different. So this is focused on just laptop or Chromebook users only. All right, so I have opened up Google Chrome and I've gone to Google Maps. All right, and so when I'm here, I can zoom in on a location, let's say Platteville. But now I used to think that Google Maps was really just a directional tool to get from A to B, but it's become so much more than that. I think back to when we were assigning kids, maybe they had to research a state, a country, a city, or plan a trip or something like that. I remember writing to chambers of commerce to try to get information about, say, Wisconsin Dells. I remember drawing my little map and my little travel brochure. Now, most of that research can be done right within Google Maps. So check this out. All right, so I've zoomed in on Platteville. I'm going to X out of that little card there. I can filter down some information. For example, restaurants. I can look at restaurants by price if I'm on a budget, rating if I care about that, and cuisine if I have a hankering for something. So I can also look at hotels, and I want to point out parking lots. So if you're traveling in a bigger city and you want to know where are the parking lots, it doesn't necessarily mean free parking lot. You might have to have a permit, but it gives you a rough idea of where some of the public parking lots might be in a community. For me, when I'm traveling to Madison, I really do want to know which parking lot is the closest to my destination. So I generally look at this particular filter. Now, I can look at filters that way, but of course, we know that it's a great directional tool, but it's a little more powerful than what you might have thought. So Platteville, Wisconsin to, let's go to New Orleans. All right, so I get the traveling directions, but I can also filter out, let's say I want to avoid tolls, I can do that, or I want to change the units and look at it in, say, kilometers or something like that. I can, but I can also figure out walking directions and notice it changes the direction. So I'm not on the same pathway as those cars. Thank you, Google. And I can also bike it. You may have noticed the elevation, the altitude is displayed as well. It's a slow, steady downhill ride to New Orleans. And I can also look at flight information. Now is not a great time to fly or even look at prices because they're significantly far off from what they are normally. But we can still kind of glean some information at this moment. So if I'm having students plan trips or understand how transportation works, they could dive into Google Flights and be able to look at a lot of data within Google Flights. I remember when Priceline first came out and I had to fly somewhere, I would check Priceline multiple times a week trying to get that best price, not really thinking about the fact that Priceline keeps track of every time I go to their website, right? I can look instead now, I can just look at the date grid within Google Flights and be able to kind of figure out when should I be asking for, or when should I book my flight to get the best deal. So I can also be thinking about if I were a student trying to research and understand how this transportation works, what layovers are like, and how many stops and where would the stops be? Can I bring luggage? If so, how much? What's a carry-on going to cost me, if anything, right? So it's kind of neat to be able to have students kind of comb through this if they're thinking why can't we go to Florida, Disneyland every year? There's a reason. It's expensive and it's challenging. Why is that, right? So you can dive into Google Flights with kids within Google Maps to be able to kind of extract some of that learning. So we have now gone through, let's see, directions and different modes of transportation. Oh, we should look at public transportation. Oh, by the way, for those of you who use Google Maps on your mobile device, your smartphone, you can now download those maps for offline use, which really does matter. Say like north of Boscobel in the real driftless region, right, where cell phone reception can be an issue. There are people that live, say, in the Richland Center area that can't have a cell phone at their house. They have to have a landline. So, like in those moments, if you don't know where you're going and you lost signal, that can be kind of stress. It can be a stressor. So it is possible on your smart device to download that map and those directions for offline use. You have to check that out. It doesn't apply on a Chromebook or a laptop, but on your smartphone, it certainly is a feature. So we need to talk about public transportation. So I'm going to go from San Francisco International Airport directions. Let's see, I'm going to flip that to Fisherman's Wharf. So when I was in San Francisco this November, my conference got over at noon, but I wasn't watching what flight got picked for me, and my flight didn't go out until 11:30 at night. So that was a very long day all by myself, and I was not going to sit at the airport that long when I'm this close to San Francisco. So I decided to be a big girl here, and I'm going to go somehow get myself down to downtown San Francisco, like by the tourist areas, and try to go see the Golden Gate Bridge, or at least see it in the distance, and walk Fisherman's Wharf. So I checked first an Uber ride because that's what I know how to do. And they are so expensive in San Francisco. It would cost me probably $80 to get there and back, not what I wanted to spend. So that meant public transportation was my best option. So what I did on Google Maps, I said in Google Maps, okay, I set it up that I want to travel from the airport to Fisherman's Wharf. Then I clicked on the train and my options came up. So the first one, for example, that said, okay, that I needed to get on the Antioch depot, that stop, that place, and ride to Montgomery Street, get out and walk, and then proceed forth with my travels until I made it all the way down to Fisherman's Wharf. I love the fact that it actually would say get out and walk, or I'm getting off at this stop. I have this fear of being like missing my stop and not like somehow casting off into who knows where in a town that a city that I don't know. So Google Maps makes it so easy for that kind of traveling to happen. And even I will add this, it doesn't show it now, but when I got down there, I got off the subway or the train and then started walking down the sidewalk, and I just ended up walking all of Fisherman's Wharf. It was quite a long walk, but it was so nice. But I did have my phone go off and say, hey, there's scooters like 500 feet to your left. And I look, and sure enough, there's this pile of scooters up against trees and bike racks. And so then I could have, if I wanted, download the appropriate app and unlock one of those motorized scooters. I chose not to because I'm not very athletically inclined that way, and you're not supposed to be on the sidewalk. You have to be in the bike path next to the cars. That just didn't sound like a good idea for this newbie traveler. So I walked and absolutely loved it. But thanks to Google Maps, I actually made it down there. I felt like I had the courage to do so, and I was successful thanks to Google Maps. So I think of our kids that, especially in rural areas that don't travel a lot, understanding how public transportation works would be a fantastic thing for them to learn in Google Maps to work up that confidence. So if they ever do travel, they already kind of understand how it works. You could just start out with something small like Platteville. Okay, if I wanted to go from Platteville High School to Olsvik Hall, I didn't quite spell it right, in Platteville on campus, it does offer me those directions. So I can click on the little the transit button there, the bus basically. It's not quite a bus though, and be able to see the details of this. So from Platteville High School, I'm going to walk, right, to the high school, right? and ride the bus. So that's the bus stop is called high school. I'll get on and ride the bus over to Clare Bank, get off at Clare Bank. So I'm making 10 stops for 17 minutes, and then I'll walk to Olsvik Hall. And once I get off the bus at Clare Bank, my phone's going to kick in and show me which direction to walk towards Olsvik. That's such a nice example of how to take this big idea from the San Francisco airport and bring it down to something smaller, like in little old Platteville. Again, a great opportunity for our kids to learn how the public transportation system could potentially work for Google in Google Maps. So what about, everybody always likes flipping into 3D mode in Google Maps. Let me go back, kind of clean this up a little bit. Let's go to the Statue of Liberty. New York. All right, so here I am at the Statue of Liberty in New York City. I'm going to click on satellite in the bottom left-hand corner. And now I'm getting a very awesome, right, satellite rendering of the city. But what I like to show kids is the idea of clicking on 3D over here on the far right. And look at that. Now I'm looking at a 3D rendering of that location. So you can zoom out and then go over to, I'm going to go over, here we go, by Battery Park and kind of look over the city here and just take a look at how amazing that looks. It's such a great way for kids to kind of compare landscapes and see what cities are like. And then they can also use it to kind of compare their perceptions of things with how they really might be. Like Central Park in New York, a lot of the movies that kids watch, like Home Alone and Elf, I think. There's been a series of movies that take place in Central Park, but I don't think kids really realize how big it is. So when we zoom out, we can look and kind of see just how big this area, this landscape is. But then I also like to zoom in a little bit, tilt it 3D, and kind of look at how this amazing park, first of all, is more than just a park. Until now, I really didn't know that it had a zoo. It had diamonds, like baseball diamonds, grassy areas, waterways, ponds, just a lot. And it's connected to some, like the art galleries are on the side of it. It's just really an amazing place to visit, I imagine. But I didn't know it was so big and that it kind of like graced the town in such a way, like the city in such a way. So you can really have students go look at, say, take them to Chicago, but then have them look at the Michigan Mile, that area, but have them turn and look at it like facing the city so they can kind of see what that kind of like skyline almost looks like over the city. It's really neat. And I will say, if you use Google Earth on your phone or iPad or a tablet, it's actually even easier to use because you can take your fingers and just kind of twist the angle of the camera, the point of view a little bit easier. So have the kids flip into 3D mode. Again, to do that, what I did was I was in Google Maps here. I'll go to the Central Park Zoo here. And then I clicked satellite and then 3D. And if you do want to try to tilt, like what if I want to look at that building on the right, I would click the compass until it got to the direction I want. There we go. And it just takes a little bit of practice and you'll get the hang of it. And I can go look at the buildings that kind of bump up along the park. Really neat. So once they get into that, then usually they have a tendency to go do Street View before I'm ready. And I don't complain. It's wonderful. Tennessee Street. I'm going to take you somewhere. Tennessee Street in New Orleans. All right. And so they go look at, they immediately want to do Street View, the kids that is, by 3rd or 4th grade. And they'll go look for their house and their grandma's house and where their parents work and their school and enjoy that. Like I love watching kids kind of explore in Google Maps and just let them do that for a while. And they'll eventually come back to you when you're ready to teach them. And so I grabbed a street in particular that I find really interesting. I'm going to drag. So I've picked Pegman up by his wrist. Now, all these blue lines are Street View images grabbed by the Google car that has come by or by some users that understand how to upload this type of stuff. So most of everything is always done by Google. So I'm going to drop Pegman just at this intersection, and we're going to take a look around. So now what I'm capturing is 360 imagery that has been uploaded to Google Maps. So I'm going to go forward just in front of this house. Here we go. All right, so I spend quite a bit of time just letting kids go explore. Encourage them, maybe set up some locations they can go to, say, bigger cities in the United States, but then have them go over to Europe, and then maybe to Australia, and then maybe to Antarctica. Like, have them explore different like regions or quadrants of the globe, okay? Now, something that you can add as a layer and especially a point of discussion. Now, I happen to be on Tennessee Street in the lower 9th Ward of New Orleans. If you ever see a clock in the top left corner, you can go ahead and click it, and that allows you to zoom back in time. So for 10 plus years, the Google car has been coming by, and they've been curating all of this footage the whole time. So I can swing back to 2011, which jets us back just a little bit. Kind of take a look around here and see what exists. But then I can also go back to 2007. Now take a look at this. A much different version of Tennessee Street. So this is 2 years after Hurricane Katrina. I think you could imagine how some really interesting discussions would happen as a result of looking at this timeline, right? So again, to get there, I clicked on the clock, and then I'm going to zoom back up, slide it up, click on the picture, slide it up, click on the picture. And now I'm back to 2019. Isn't that amazing? Think of all the places you can go. If you're looking to bring it down on a smaller level, the kids might understand. Maybe in Platteville, we could see if, I have not checked to see, maybe by the end of this summer, we'd be able to see the evolution of the big apartments in Platteville, or in Green Bay, the building of Titletown next to Lambeau. That is evidence. The Buck Stadium in Milwaukee, and even in Detroit, Michigan Central Train Depot, like seeing the improvements made upon that building. There are plenty of places that our kids can go explore, even with their own houses. Google may have been by enough to have curated that street view footage. So they're going to love checking that out. It's an outstanding way to kind of examine the evolution of a landscape. Now, no doubt, they're going to check out street view photography, of course, but I would also encourage them to check out photospheres too. So if I go to Jackson Square, I'm still in New Orleans here, and I'm hitting a tourist area here. When I drag Pegman, all the blue lines appear, and the blue lines are street view photography, okay, by either the Google car or someone authorized to do this work for Google. It could be even on a scooter or a bike, whatever it is, but it's not by average users like you and me. But the blue dots are submitted by people just like you and me, okay, with 360 cameras. So if I drag Pegman, I want to get in front of that beautiful building. Let's drag it and drop it. It doesn't really matter which one. We'll grab this one. And so now I can't walk forward. This is not street view. I can't move forward in this. There's no clock to look back in time. I'm just looking at a single 360 image of this particular location. That's pretty amazing. So think of all the places that Street View might not be able to go, where you can access it thanks to photospheres uploaded by users. So again, you grab a hold of Pegman and look for a blue dot and let go. And again, that drops you into a single image uploaded by a person at some point in time who had a 360 camera. So we have 7 of these cameras in the School of Education. I own one myself. I prefer right now the best consumer grade 360 camera is the Insta1X. It's a fantastic, and I'll put it on a monopod, take a picture, and then if I'm in the mood, I'll use the retouch app to edit myself out if I have time. Otherwise, I'm just underneath the picture, kind of like this photographer is as well. Make sure you have kids check out Street View, the timeline, and now you know about photospheres. I really like to use Google Maps to kind of understand also when I'm walking a vision of my path. So if I go to Millennium Park in Chicago, if I'm at, say, the Bean, where's the Bean? There's the Bean. And I want to know how far it is to get to that other side. And it's in the afternoon and I'm tired and I've got my family with, and I don't know, do I want to commit to this walk? I do appreciate being able to use Pegman to figure out, okay, I have to cross that pedestrian bridge. What is that going to be like? I can let go and get an idea of the commitment and what I'm going to see and how hard the terrain might be and what's on that other side. I do get a little nervous about traveling in the city, and Google Maps does a great job reassuring me as to what this is going to be like before I get to that spot. You can measure. So if you right click on, say, a location, I can measure the distance. So from the Bean, what if I walk then? I know you can walk right through this. What if I go straight to here? How long of a walk is it? So it kind of gives me, it's almost 1,000 feet, probably about 1,000, because it's not necessarily this perfect straight shot. So I'm able to kind of measure things accordingly. And that's kind of cool too, if I want to know how much of a commitment is this going to be for me to make this walk. All right, so let's talk about floor plans. So I'm going to get a clean view of Google Maps here. And let's go to the Mall of America in Bloomington. Okay, so Google has now done a really phenomenal job of uploading interior floor plans to Google Maps. And that way we can tactically kind of figure out where we're going in a mall, for example, or an airport. A lot of the bigger airports have all been mapped, which is especially helpful if you have to get from gate B21 to C1 and you think they're going to be close. It might not be that way. Google Maps will help you out with that. So check this out. I'm at the Mall of America, and I'm going to zoom in one more layer and then click the map. Look at the bottom right-hand corner. I can now change floors. So I'm on the first floor, now the second, now the third, and now the fourth. That is amazing. So if I'm going with a group of people and I want to kind of divide up where people want to go the most, we can plan that trip, like a mini trip within the trip, right? And divide and kind of conquer in a way. Or what if we take our kids to, the Smithsonian? I'm just going to search Smithsonian Museum. And when I get to the National Mall, there's several of them. So I'm going to zoom in on one. Let's go to let's try the Natural History Museum. All right, so I zoom in, I click the map. Look at that, ground floor 1 and 2. And then I can pick up Pegman, and I don't know where I'm going to drop myself here. I don't know, just let go. I want to pick somewhere really great though. I don't know. We'll see what this is. And so now I can get an interior view of what these locations look like. So, a lot of our kids they don't get to go to Washington, D.C. until they're much older, but just look at all the Street View data and all the blue dots that they can examine long before they ever get to go. They can become pretty well versed in the landscape of a place long before the trip occurs, right? And learn about that culture right from their living room, from their home, or from the classroom, right? So I've dropped myself down in the Washington Mall. Oh, nice spot. Beautiful. All right, so we've talked about that. Oh, what if we want to get out of Earth? We can leave. Did you know that? So I'm going to flip into satellite mode in the bottom left-hand corner, and then I'm going to zoom out a lot. I have to be patient here. There we go. And I've made my final zoom, and I just backed out. That's all I did. Look what popped up on the left. Now you can look at other planets, but what I want to note is you can go to the International Space Station and take an interior walkthrough. You can click points of interest to learn more information, but you can also walk through it. So here's an example. So click here to enter node 3. So now we're going in, And again, there's more points of interest. Like here, we can learn about the waste and hygiene compartment. And the permanent multi-purpose module. So if you click it, then information comes up. But I also notice there's an arrow here on the floor, which in Street View land, right, that means you can walk forward. So I'm going to click that and see if we can move into additional rooms and look around. That is amazing. I don't know what I was expecting, but not this. So we can click this point of interest and learn about it. All right, so we have now learned how to use Google Maps to be able to seek directions, gain new layered information, be able to see how far away something might be. We've walked inside buildings. We've looked at floor plans. We have done an awful lot of things. Oh, what if we look at Google satellite imagery over time? We've looked at Street View over time. But wouldn't you like to be able to look at the evolution of, say, a location over time? Let's try that. So do me a favor and Google Timelapse. All right, so this is part of the Google Earth engine. It's a little bit different, and you can't quite zoom in as far as I want, but it's still a really cool tool. So just for an example, I'm going to go to Platteville, Wisconsin, because over time, Highway 151 was built, and so I thought that might provide some kind of visualization for this presentation. And so we can see starting in the 80s, the development of Platteville. Now it's struggling to zoom in because my internet, there we go, is a bit laggy. Here we go. So what I want you to do is pay attention, oh, there it goes, to the development of Highway 151, and then it's going to start over. Here we go. Besides 151, you can also see the growth of Walmart and the quarry and the business park. So the timeline feature is going to be able to give you the opportunity to look at natural disasters, urban sprawl, growth in industry, changes in landscape use. So think of all the places that you could take kids and you want to look at satellite imagery over time. That is amazing. All right, so what about, I've talked about Google Earth. Let's just launch into Google Earth. So I'm going to Google Earth. Now, Google Earth, once upon a time, was only something you could install on a machine. You couldn't access on a Chromebook, but now we can open it up on a Chromebook just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and launch it. And this is different. So some people get confused, like, what's the difference between Earth and Google Maps? They seem the same. Well, they both use the same data sometimes. However, Google Maps is more for directions and seeking out specific like locations and user data, like reviews I might leave or edits or questions I might answer. Google Earth is more like looking at beautiful imagery across the globe, but you would never use Google Earth to seek out directions or look at a floor plan or Street View data. So they're kind of different. Think of Google Earth as when we were kids, we would grab a globe and look at the globe. That's what Google Earth is times like a million data points. So we're in Google Earth right now, and there are several things we can do. I won't go over in this presentation like all the features of Google Earth. I just want to note the newest one right now. So over on the far left, we see a button called Projects. If we click that, our students can make custom tours in Google Earth. So for example, I had my son make one on places in Wisconsin. He was researching the different areas, the different regions of Wisconsin. And then his task was to figure out somewhere he could go for enjoyment, somewhere to eat, and somewhere to learn in each of these regions. Oh, and he had to have somewhere to stay. So he picked out all these regions. And so here they are. Here's the list. And then when you click present, someday I want somebody to either record me a screencast and have this all recording, or to give it up and give like a presentation using this as your presentation like device or background, I should say. I think it would be great because you pick the first, you start out at location number 1, and when you tap the right arrow to advance to the next one, it picks you up within Google Earth and slides you to the next location. And then if the user wants to know more about, say, the freight house or wherever I'm going next, I can click on that card and go learn more information. But if I just keep hitting the right arrow key, I'm toggled over to like the next location that Matthew picked out. And it is shareable. So if I go back here, I can share this location with others as a link. So then they can view it too. How cool is that? And I can share it with other collaborators. All right, so that's all within Google Earth. Now, I'm going to bump back to Google Maps for a second, since we're talking about customizing things, and we're going to go to something called Google My Maps. So Google My Maps, kind of like Google Earth projects, allows us to make custom maps to be able to use with other people. So I don't have any that I originated, but I have some that I shared with myself under different accounts. So I'm going to just open one up as an example. So here I made one on important historical places in Southwest Wisconsin. And so you just start a new map and drop pinpoints on wherever you're looking to add on the map. So if I wanted to, I can add, I see that I didn't put in the county courthouse. And so I can click here, and I want to make sure I'm pretty precise here. Clerk of court right here. All right, so I can do this. There we go. So it's not, I don't want to call it point 24. I want to call it the Grant County Courthouse. And I can write information about it and even add a picture. So I could put in the address to our county's website. I will just click save. So see, it gives me the GPS coordinates. If I were looking at this map from my cell phone, my smartphone, I would be able to get directions to this location. So, and it added it to the bottom right there. Now I can even import layers. I have imported, like I collected spreadsheet data on where my students were from, city and state, and then imported that and built an automatic layer of data on where my students were from. Very, very neat. I could also just manually add another layer to this. So maybe one layer would be important historical places, but maybe another layer would be historic homes in Grant County. And I'd pick a different color for that, perhaps. So custom mapping is fantastic. Your projects are automatically saved in Google Drive. And not only can you share them with other users, you can even embed them in your website. There's embeddable code you can extract. When you click share, then you're able to decide who has access. Now, I didn't start out making this, so I can't go tweaking settings. I would have to log under my personal account. So that would be one other one. Oh, another custom one would be Google Tour Builder. All right, so Tour Builder, it's not so much a custom map as much as it's a custom digital story that you might tell in the order events happen. So I'm already logged in my tours. So this summer, hopefully, we'll see, we're supposed to take students to the United Kingdom for 2 weeks. And so I thought, well, I'll start making a custom tour in Tour Builder. And what happens is, so I can add these locations and it conducts the tour in the order they happen. So we'll go from Chicago over to London, over to Harlexton College, and so forth. And along the way, I can add my own content, including my own personal photos. I cannot do that in, I don't think, any of the other tools unless I add them somehow to Google Maps as photospheres. So this one, although it's not as fancy looking, it is definitely a more personal tool for students to use. A lot of my student teachers will pick this one when they're trying to describe or explain who they are and all the places places they've traveled when they're introducing themselves to their students. So you could use this one to tell a character's timeline if it was based on actual locations, or maybe a period in history that went in a certain order. Possibly could work. So that's Tour Builder. But what if you want to use virtual reality? Can we do that? Yes, you can. So we're going to go to Google Tour Creator. So we were just at Google Tour Builder. Now we're looking at Google Tour Creator. And Tour Creator relies heavily on 360 images to provide this virtual tour. So I'm going to click Tour Creator. And just for the sake of demo, I'm going to pull up one that I've made a while back. So don't pay attention to how I'm getting to this, because I wouldn't want you to do it this way. I'm just pulling one up as an example. So a while back, I made one. I started one. I have not finished it, of the Platteville Fire Department. So it's a series of 360 images because I wanted to give the kids a sense of what our fire department was like. So the camera's right here, and there's a point of interest that explains the fire department and how many like vehicles they have. And then you can scooch on over to the next scene, where again, you're now given the opportunity to look around the inside of the firehouse. And then there's another point of interest that describes what that machine is. So think of all the places you might want to take kids and think virtually, like inside 360 imagery. There isn't a bad seat in the house in that viewing, right? So how do you make these things? So I'm going to get out of where I'm at and go to Tour Creator again. And then I'll click Get Started. And now this one that I keep messing with is just really my junk one that I'm always demoing with. So the title means absolutely nothing. I'm going to click Add Scene, and I'm brought to a map. And so I need to pick a place. Well, we've been in New Orleans quite a bit. So let's take the French Quarter in New Orleans. And I'm going to zoom in and pick Pegman up. And I want to look for either street view imagery, so the blue lines, or the blue dots. That would be photospheres uploaded by users. So I'm going to pick something here. Let's hover. I want to pick something really pretty. And then I will let go and look around. So if this is an image that I would like to share or put in my virtual tour, I will click Add Scene. And then from here, I can add a title, a description, a narration, support those multiple modes of learning, right? And even background noise. So in a different location, something like the sounds of a city, maybe music in the background that is playing there at that location, birds chirping, waves crashing the shore, honking cars, animals, right? So whatever occurs in the background, capturing that audio. And I can add points of interest. So if I wanted to direct someone's attention to that particular location, I can do that. Let me jump back into where I was. There we go. Ooh, grab my point of interest and drag it over here. And I can work with that information right there. So then when I'm all done, I can't publish this because it's so unfinished and it's not really a tour of anything. It's just examples that I keep messing with. I get a link, and that link then I can share with anybody, a chamber of commerce, a college or a school or whomever. Maybe I made something for somebody else to offer a virtual tour. I can tweet it out. I can put it on Facebook, anything. I can even submit it to Classroom as an assignment. And if I made it under my school Google account, which I would, I can view it in Google Expeditions. And as a teacher, I can then launch that expedition and take my class on that tour. So think of the idea of being able to take kids on a virtual tour anywhere you want that has street view photography or photosphere images. That's a lot of places. So some people have felt limited. There's hundreds of expeditions already made by Google. But if there's something that you want to do or you want to take kids on that hasn't been made yet, you can make it for $0. You just need to use Google Tour Creator. All right, so and think about if you can ever get your hands on a 360 camera, taking kids out to photograph is a blast. I take about 3 kids out at a time and we go to photograph a part of our community and we upload it under a school branded Google account. And then we can use those later to make our own custom tours. And it's viewable by anyone in the world that wants to see about whatever it is you photographed, about your community. And the last thing I'd like you to think about doing is becoming a Google local guide. Now, this doesn't have anything to do with designing curriculum, or you can't have your students become Google local guides. This is just for you as a consumer. For me, becoming a local guide has really opened my mind up to the idea of collaborating and contributing for the good of my community. So as a local guide, I leave reviews, answer questions, edit the map, add roads, add photospheres. I can even add street view photography now. So the thought I have, right, is that my work tells the digital story or contributes to the digital story of Southwest Wisconsin and reveals to people our culture by showing where we live, work, and play and what we value as a community. That's kind of a really powerful thing to think about. So again, if you have any questions about the things that I've shown you or how to get into these tools, you want to bounce ideas or maybe collaborate on a project, or how to get into becoming a Google local guide, or more about that camera, let me know. You can find me on Twitter at Brogley. And tweet to me any questions you have. But you can also email me. My email is brogleyjess@uwplatte.edu. Thanks for watching if you made it to the end of this, and I hope you take some time to dig in and get lost in Google Maps, Google Earth, Google Timeline, Tour Creator, Tour Builder, and start exploring our world in a way that I can't, like for you and I when we were kids, we couldn't even imagine this as an option. I thought the like bumpy globe, the Appalachian Mountain, like I thought that was cool, right? And I only had the information that I could get out of the World Book Encyclopedia. The volume of information our kids can access today, just within Google Maps and Earth, is beyond what I could have possibly comprehended 10 years ago. So take advantage of that. If you have any questions or you want me to make a custom video for your kids to kind of explain something, just let me know. I'm here to help.